Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to the Hammerdown Podcast, where we put the pedal to the metal and talk trends, tech, and tunes. My name is Jay Mervis, Sales Director for Lifescale Analytics. Today, I've got Brian Carnell, Chief Information Officer here at Lifescale Analytics. Brian, how are you today?
And Chief Cook and Bottle Washer. Ooh. You left that out.
Ooh, well, that's why we ask you, hey, what do you do for the firm, man?
I do everything that I possibly can. We are a small firm, so all of us wear different hats every day. Some days I may wake up and have to juggle the checkbook, and then other days I'm actually doing data jockeying work. So do everything, Jay, as you know.
Well, hey, that's what we do. It's a small firm.
That's what we do. It's a small firm.
It's a great place to be. We're doing a lot with in the data and analytics space. So the data's exploded a ton, and one of the things that we want to talk about today was data hygiene and AI and how that impacts the business. So I would love to hear, let's start at a 101 level. Okay. What is data hygiene and why is it important?
Well, it's almost like personal hygiene. Nobody wants to be around you if it ain't clean. And there's nothing worse than throwing bad data at a problem. You make horrible decisions. And so making sure that your data is hygienic, i.e. it's clean, it's good. And almost like a really good example is the one thing I see about data is that there's three things that matter. And if you're running a retail business and you're going to start a new business, you've always heard location, location, location. With data, it's context, context, context. That's probably the most important thing. And getting your context wrong is detrimental to any project you're doing. You want to make sure that your SMEs have verified your data. And then you also want to make sure that it's clean, it's in a usable format. The timestamp, you understand the timestamp on the data. You understand the date code. You'll get data from across the pond, for instance, and it's got an international date code on it, where we here in the US have a US date code on it. So making sure your data is clean, it's hygienic, and that it's usable is absolutely the most important thing that you can do. All right, so you mentioned AI, and I'll go dig a little bit into that a little bit.
Yeah, so let's talk about how does the data hygiene impact artificial intelligence, because if you don't have clean data, as you're talking about, then everybody says, oh, we want to go to AI, we want to go to AI. Data hygiene being foundational, How does that impact your journey to AI?
So let me give an example of that. I did a project called Wrap Tear about 4 years ago, and it was one of the early on projects that I did with OpenCV, so open computer vision, and using AI to spot things. Raptear.ai was a drone that would chase birds off from a golf course autonomously. And so what happened was we had to train against geese. And you're a golfer, so you know how that works, right? You go out to the golf course, you go to the green, there's water 50 yards away, and there's nothing but poop on the green. Oh, yeah. How do you get rid of that? You get rid of that with some sort of autonomous robot, because you can't stand there 24 hours a day guarding the green. I launched an algorithm to train being able to look for geese on a golf course. Well, geese are very well camouflaged from millions of years of evolution. And there are some things in computer vision that it might mistake for a goose, i.e. my hair. Because the heuristics of my hair and your hair, they're pretty close to the color of a goose. Well, if you throw bad data at it, so you don't have good, clean, hygienic data, you haven't done a good job of creating bounding boxes around what you're looking for, the algorithm itself can become confused. So we hadn't done a really good job. We didn't understand the importance of really closely building the bounding boxes and getting as tight on the bounding boxes as we could. And we were moving through 1 million pictures of geese. And we had done a lot of video, and we were just capturing screenshots and moving through pictures as fast as possible. We threw bad data at it. So what happens the first time we launched the darn thing, it takes off. Grandma pulls up to the green with her giant gray and black hair, salt and pepper hair, and that drone decides that is a goose and it should not be there. Thank heavens we were there. We already, we had our hands on the controls. It wasn't like we were completely flying autonomous. We still had the man in the middle to make sure it was right. But that drone decided that her hair was a goose. The heuristics, the mathematical algorithm matched up. It was close to dang enough, and it was gone. And so, clean, hygienic data, making sure context is correct, is of the utmost importance. That's a computer vision example, but there's many more where you just have raw data, like financial data, healthcare data, those types of data that are coming in from various systems. So making sure that your hygiene is good before you throw it in an algorithm and train it wrong is really important, Jay.
Yeah, we don't want drones.
We don't want to chase
old
grandma.
ladies.
No,
Yeah,
it's bad juju.
Yeah, it's not going to be good, and they're having enough trouble finding the ball.
It's bad juju. Yeah.
I'm with you. So let's talk about technology. So here at Lifescale, what do we do when a customer has bad data hygiene? What do we leverage from like technology, people process technology? What are you seeing in the marketplace?
So that people process technology, the key word is people. Making sure that up front, when we do the data evolution strategy, the first thing we do is interviews. And there's not a lot of technology involved in that. It is the hard, unsexy work nobody wants to do. We go in, we line up the stakeholders, we find the subject matter experts, and then we identify what they do in their job. And this is literally a question and answer session, almost like you're doing with me right now. Once we're in there, we can begin to identify the data they have. What systems do they use? Where is it at? How are they using it? What are they using for reporting? Are they doing this day to day in their job? And during that initial landscaping phase where we're creating the landscapes, i.e. this person uses data X, Y, and Z, they get it from system A, B, and C. Once we know that, we log it appropriately, we create the data landscapes, and again, this is a very manual process. It's the unsexy work. Nobody wants to do it, but we do it because we know that hard, unsexy work up front is going to pay dividends when we actually do get to data jockeying, when we get to creating algorithms, when we get to using their data, when we get to doing real hardcore data science and looking for anomalies, things that where they can save money. So that people part of the people process technology is the first step that we take when we go in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
fair enough.
no, and that's good. We're just trying to educate the market on what we do here at Lifescale. Quite a bit of showing up, and we saw this when I was dealing a lot with cybersecurity. Everybody has tools. So everybody has a slew of tools, and what happens is they get installed to a 20-25%. Efficacy. They get set up one time, and then you talk about interviewing other stakeholders to leverage those tools. So, having good data hygiene and then a program behind it to go and execute on that technology. That's
a good topic, Jay. One thing that we don't do up front is recommend a tool. We just don't do it.
Yep.
And that stems from all of my federal service. I had 50 people a day come in and tell me how their tool was going to solve my problems and how awesome it was and how it could solve all of these problems. I would do an install of some ridiculously expensive tool and it get used to 10%. And I paid for 100% of the tool. And if you just take some small example of that, I paid $1 million for a tool. Let's say I paid $1 million for it. I used 10% of it. I'm getting $100,000 worth of value out of it. Is that good for the organization that I work for? No, it's horrible. It's a horrible return on investment.
Right.
And then I'm stuck with that tool. I'm stuck with that tool for 4 years, 8 years, however long it is. Even if I try to transition off of that tool later on, it's almost impossible.
Right.
What gives me better return on investment? Well, the better return on investment comes from doing the work up front, making sure the data that I have, so the historical data that I have, can be used in that tool. Because data is the thing that drives my business. It's the thing that allows me to get more return on investment. It's the thing that makes life a lot easier in the long run and gets my organization return on investment for a decision that I made. And I saw that way too much where just so many tools were coming in the door to solve some niche problem when really they had a data problem. And that was one of the things that drove me to this business and really where I cut my chops was figuring out I'm going to go ask management for $1 million. And if I'm asking management for $1 million, I should have a really good story as to how I'm going to pay the organization back for that. How we're actually going to go forward with this, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's data warehousing, whether it's even just a hardware infrastructure purchase. How am I going to get the organization, advance the organization with the investment I'm making. And that was what drove me to it. In one of my jobs, we had 50 petabytes of data in 2015. And I heard that over and over and over. We've got 50 petabytes of data, 50 petabytes of data. Well, there should be some intelligence in that data somewhere.
Right.
Can you tell me where it's at? But nobody ever could. And then as I really started to dig into it myself, got the access I needed, got data from the databases. There was a lot of duplicative data. There was a lot of data that was erroneous, that should have been normalized, that we should have gotten rid of. We were just saving stuff on spinning rust. And it was a loss to the organization. So that was kind of the thing that gave me the kick in the pants to really dig into the data sets I have. It was also the thing that gave me my methodology. When I go to do an engagement and I really buckle down in the very beginning, I want to know two things. What data do I have that is historically valuable? And what data am I getting now that is immediately actionable?
Ding, ding.
And those two things make up the crux of everything I need to know. So finding that historical data, getting it hygienic, getting into some place that you can use it, getting some intelligence from it before you start throwing IoT and all of the latest, greatest technology to feed more data. Know what you've got, know what that value is, and then go out and seek out the immediately actionable data that you can make decisions from. And to the AI point you mentioned earlier and asked about, if you don't know what historical data you have and you don't know what value you're trying to get from it, you're taking a shot in the dark that you're going to hit your target. And I almost guarantee you at least 50% of the time you're not going to hit your target. So if 50% is a good statistic for you, by all means have at it. But it's not where I want to live my life. I need some certainty and probability that is only portrayed in historically valuable information before I start to pile on more data and try to make decisions automatically with using AI or anything else.
Yeah, and so that's a good point, Brian. Talk about interviewing and you talk about context. This is from my research before we got on the call. We're talking to a significant amount of customers, whether they're existing customers or net new people that don't know anything about the firm, but they're like, hey, we want to talk to you guys. There's an expense, and everybody, my background's healthcare. There's a lot of let's drive the expense out of the business, but we have all these obligations, right? One is business continuity, one is data protection, and one is what you're talking about is how do I use that as immediately actionable or historical data, and then aligning the business. We've had some RFP responses on how do we align our business, but if you don't know where the data is, like if you don't know where your assets are, then how do you protect it and restore from it? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And nobody wants to be on the front page of the news or minimize the when. So that's why, when I'm doing my research about hygiene, it's, business continuity. Anybody that's in a, hurricane impacted area, just for best practices. You talked about 2015 data. The data's extrapolated so much from what it was in 2015.
Right, context.
To today, that if you're not doing your regular disaster recovery or business continuity, the sizing might be different now on what you're going to get back online. With healthcare customers, it might be Epic and HKG, because that's the time clock and the EMR, and then all the ancillary stuff's going to get on when it gets on because it's too expensive because you have too much data and you don't know where it is.
Yeah, so systems transition.
It's
and digital transformation. I mean, that's another big one that you're driving straight down that path. A lot of people have done, and they're well underway with their digital transformation. And what is that? That's just converting analog data or old data to something that's modern and usable. And what do you generally do when you're going to do a digital transformation? You do a technology refresh. Well, what happens to the old stuff? It's either lost to time, it becomes blinded. It's almost like a double-blinded study. And then what's the biggest part of any manufacturing business is inventory, right? What happens? Well, I've got 5 of these parts laying on a shelf over in this dusty warehouse that I forgot about. Well, I'm going to order 5 more.
Right.
That's loss because number one, those parts might not be usable when you go pick them up. The grease fittings could be broken. It could be any number of things because you don't know that part is still going to work on your digitally transformed infrastructure. So now what have you done? You've wasted money that's sitting on the shelf, or you've left it there to age out or go end of life. That's a big thing with a lot of software. You bring in a tool, the software company that you're buying it from, you go through your 4-year life cycle with it, and then they want to upgrade you to the next version. Well, some of that data may be left behind. You may choose to change vendors. Could be any number of things. You lose that data. You lose that historical knowledge. One of the biggest things I hear a lot, I do a lot of government work still, is that, oh, I've got this just giant retirement curve ahead of me. I've got all these people that are set to retire in the next 1, 2, 3 years, and they know everything. Well, they talk about that a lot, but they don't ever do anything about it. So that's almost like putting inventory on the shelf, forgetting about it, not knowing the context of it, and then just leaving it there to rust while you go buy a new product. It's terrible. You have to capture that knowledge. You have to capture that subject matter expert. You have to know what data you have, what data they are pushing forward, and what data they are using, or you're just leaving inventory on the shelf to rust.
Yeah. So Data Hygiene, give us a call. Brian and I are both on LinkedIn. Brian's not nearly as active as we would like.
They want me to be more active, yes.
But this is a great transition to tunes. You talk about the evolution from an analog world with tape and record and 8-track to analog onto CD, then CD digital, and now everybody just consumes it off a streaming service. And I have CDs just because I had a cool CD collection, and so did you. And
I still got it. It's in a box in the attic.
I still have mine too.
And I will say that last weekend, because I was down in Florida at a customer and I was there for 2 weeks, so I did go into a retro record store, Jay.
They're all good.
And I bought a bunch of LPs, and I don't have a record player.
Well, I've got 2 record players only because my kid said this sounds so much better. And I'm going to make a shout out. I wasn't going to make a shout out on this, but Nate Nichols, we always have a joke. He's my old engineer. We'd be going somewhere, and we'd watch for people under the age of 25 wearing Nirvana shirts, not knowing what Nirvana was. So on that, Brian and I are going to transition. Okay. This is corporate Christmas for me, so we're going to talk tunes. Brian, you're the guest. You said, I want to do 3 Doors Down.
3 Doors Down.
Great band, 30 million albums sold. Ties into data hygiene. The name, this is where I think all the connectivity comes. The name comes from a sign that had the letters falling off that just said Doors Down on it. There was 3 dudes in the band, and they said, we're going to be 3 doors down. But that ties back in the letters falling off the sign. Good data hygiene is what we should all be striving for. Give us a ring. You know how to get a hold of me, but 3 band members, turn to 4, turn to 5, whatever. But since you're the guest, why do you like 3 Doors Down, Brian?
I love the music, and the songs are so relevant to what we do. Kryptonite. If you're going to go pick up a piece of kryptonite, you damn well better know how to handle it. And for data, that's it. It can be kryptonite, or it can be the best thing in the world.
You just made me feel 25 again, because that was the #1 song for 15 weeks in 2000. So
Sweet.
I mean, that's a great. We'll go fantasy football style. I'll take 2. 2 that I think. The road I'm on. Everybody's on some sort of digital transformation journey. The road I'm on kind of highlights getting, it's continuous process improvement. It's never done being good at data. And then the other one I'm going to take is Here Without You with Sarah Evans, collaboration. Watch it on YouTube, but that was a great one of their top songs. I'll give you 2 going back fantasy football style, Brian. You get to have.
I get to have 2?
You get to have 2.
Let's go with Citizen Soldier. And I say Citizen Soldier because I believe in citizen data scientist. There's nothing more powerful than a citizen data scientist that enjoys jockeying data or that enjoys wrangling data. Those citizen data scientists is the most powerful thing on the planet. And if you can get your data into a spot where you can make all your employees or your resources citizen data scientists, absolutely.
Love that. And then you got another one?
A Dangerous Game.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a dangerous game to go in with bad hygienic data. It really is. Again, I give you back to the open CV. I'm going to call it, well, let's just call it a learning experience that I had. But yeah, it's a dangerous game to go in with bad data, because you just don't know what the outcome's going to be. And if you're going to use AI, for heaven's sakes, feed it appropriately, train it appropriately, give it a good education. You wouldn't send your kids out into the world without them going through school, would you? I wouldn't.
No.
That'd be a bad idea.
Totally. I'm going to close it out. I'm going to take the better life. I think that anytime we go and help with data hygiene, it makes the folks that work there that are dealing with this, gives them a better life. We used to talk about that with certain products, give you your weekend back, because the upgrades were seamless and flawless. But in the data hygiene world, better life, right? We want everybody, if we clean up your data, those restore activities, protect activities, understanding where your data is, third-party contractors, all those kind of things, and then leveraging it for that immediately actionable. That's like one of your highlights whenever we talk, like, let's make this immediately actionable, and that's what we're doing. So,
but let's do it in a smart way.
Let's do it the smart way. Better life. So, just throwing it out there. Listen, appreciate you guys tuning in to the Hammerdown Podcast today. I've got Brian Carnell on. Like it, share it, tell your friends, tell your mom. Thanks for being on, Brian, and tune in for the next episode.